What's going on, everybody? One of the things that I hear most commonly when talking to new tax firm owners or people who have recently purchased Taxdome is that they can't figure out kind of the pipeline, the automation, the workflow piece of it. And so a lot of times I hear them say like, I'm just going to use it as my document portal, my client communication, or sending invoices. And to be honest with you, Taxdome is not worth having if you're not going to use the workflow pipeline. That's the whole reason why I originally purchased Taxdome. I was using several other things before, but once I found this, it really solved those problems. So real quick, my name's Brad. I launched my CPA firm in November of 2019, and I've been running and growing my CPA firm now for 6 years. And just recently, I've started coaching other tax firm owners who are about to launch their firms or have recently launched their firms or are trying to grow their firms. And so that's really been very rewarding. I really enjoy it, love connecting with other tax firm owners and just sharing what has worked for me, what hasn't, and helping them kind of get unstuck and overcome some of their challenges and see their firms kind of take off and grow. So with Taxdome, like I mentioned, I had used several other pieces of software to kind of do my project management, and Taxdome by far has been the best. Now, there are other ones out there that do similar things, I think. Firm 360, Carbon, I think they all do similar things. Taxdome is just the one that I happen to select. I really enjoy it, and I don't plan to move away from it. And so I highly recommend it, but if you're not going to use the pipelines, if you're not going to use the workflows and some of the automations, I really don't know if it's worth it. When I first started out, I was using just an Excel file to keep track of everything with some drop-down statuses that I could choose from. And then I moved into Evernote. And then after Evernote, I moved into Asana. Now, Asana had the pipeline view that you're going to see in Taxdome. And I really enjoyed that view. I liked being able to see all of my jobs on one screen and where everything was. And then when I started hearing about Taxdome, a friend of mine had already switched to it and he was running his own CPA firm on it. And when I started hearing about some of the things that it would do, I immediately went out and got it. And I did that in the middle of a tax season. I switched from Asana to Taxdome somewhere around the beginning of March in one of my tax seasons, I think the third tax season. And it was definitely worth it. I did not purchase a template. I built my pipeline from scratch. Now, remember, I was using Asana and I already had my pipeline stages set up. So I basically just copied those stages. I set them up in Taxdome and I had to create some templates, tasks, and things like that, and then put some automations in place and I was ready to go. So let's go ahead and just jump into what my pipeline looks like in terms of my individual 1040 tax prep. So I do have a separate pipeline for onboarding clients. And it's a pretty short pipeline. It's just kind of a waiting for appointment scheduled, get the proposal together, send them the proposal. They sign the proposal, and then I add them to kind of my checklist. I have a redundancy checklist in just a Google Sheet to make sure that I don't overlook anyone. And that's just a very basic, like, here's the people I need to do. Are they complete or not? And then they all, of course, go into the pipeline here in Taxdome. So if I'm onboarding a client that has a 1040 tax return, then they've signed the proposal. It says, it ends with add them to the checklist and put them in the right workflow pipeline. And so that's what I would do. I would open up and I would create a new job for this test client, and I would want that to be in my tax prep pipeline. And so I would choose my 1040 individual tax prep pipeline. This template for a job is already set up, and any job that's going into this pipeline is going to default to that job template. And so the template has already been filled in. The name has been filled in. It's going to put their account name on here. The year I just change every year. It's going to assign that job to myself, and you can have it assign it to other team members if you need to. And then if you want to use due dates, I don't use due dates. You can use that. Client-facing statuses, those do show up, and I do use those, but it's not at this point. I created just an intake spot for that job to land. I don't have automations just kind of kick off right from the beginning. I just like having the job land there, and then I can manually put it in the right spot after that. I kind of like that. Other people, they have jobs recreate annually into this pipeline directly. And then the automations just kind of kick off, and that's a great way to go too. But again, I do it this way. So it's going to create this task again, create an invoice and link it to the job. So now that this job is in my pipeline, it just showed me the job card, and it just should pop up in here. I might have to refresh. There it is. So, at any given time, I might have 300 job cards just like that one in various stages of this pipeline. And then this job is going to move through the pipeline until it is a completed filed return. And so really your pipeline is just the stages that your jobs need to move through. So you've already kind of thought through this. I know that you have. You're already working on your tax returns. They're already going in various stages, whether it's waiting on documents or it's waiting on information from the client, or you are ready to package the return together and deliver it, or it's waiting on a signature on the 8879. You have these different stages that your work is going through, and you just need to think about those as different buckets, or in this case, different columns that are going to be in your pipeline. And that's going to help you know like where your work is, right? Because if I honestly don't know any other way to do it. Again, like I said, I had found Asana to do it this way because it just made sense to me. And so having done that here in Taxdome, it just makes sense where at any given time, I can tell, again, these clients are waiting on their organizer. These clients are waiting on the contract and to pay the invoice. This one is waiting for me to assign a tax return preparer, and this one's ready to begin. So again, at just a quick glance, I can see exactly how many are in each stage. I can see where clients are at. I can go to that particular client, and if I open that client up, I can see the work. I can see all their details. I mean, I can open that client up from that job card and see everything, but then I can see just their workflow by itself if I ever need to do that too. And this is the job card. So you open up the job card, anything you've attached to it, you can link to this job: notes, client requests, chats, proposals, documents, tasks, time entries, invoices, payments, organizers, wiki pages, and jobs. You can track your time right here as you're working on the client. You can change what stage it's in. You can change who the assignee is. You can add start dates. You can budget time and create priorities, keep notes right here. It's just everything that you need is right here. This is the view that I work from every single day. I will open up my tax prep pipeline, and I will work from that view and figure out who I need to work on. I sort this view by oldest to newest in that stage. So for example, if there's a job card and waiting on organizer that's been in that stage for 2 weeks, it's going to show up at the top of the list, and something from 1 week ago is going to be below that. So whatever is the oldest in that stage is going to show up at the top of that stage. And then I just work my way down from oldest to newest. So basically whoever has been there the longest, first in, first out. That's how I do my tax prep. And I have other pipelines too. So, if you need a bookkeeping pipeline, I have a business tax prep pipeline. I have kind of a other jobs pipeline as well, where I put kind of like a catch-all thing. And so this is just working through the 1040 pipeline. So I'll go through my stages. And your stages might look different. They might be in different orders, and that's fine. You need to take some time to just kind of think through and map out what the stages are that your work goes through from start to finish. So like I said, intake. I'll then, if I onboard a client now, I'm going to hold them until the 2025 tax season. Or 2026 technically tax season. And so I might put them in there and just let them sit there until it's time to do something. Now, once it's time, okay, I'm going to move them into contract and invoice. So I do have to manually send my invoices. So I would go and I would create a new invoice for this client. I would attach that invoice, link it to this job card, and then I would move them into waiting on contract and invoice. Now, these little lightning bolts show whatever automations are set up for that stage. So for this particular stage, it's going to send them a proposal. It's going to send them an email. It's going to send them a message which is here in Taxdome, and it's going to update the client-facing status that the client is able to see when they log into their portal. Now, when I drag and drop them in there, you can see that I can choose not to do any of those automations, or I can let it do all of those automations. Also, if there's an incomplete task when I go to move it, it's going to ask if I want to mark that task as complete. I can move it to the next stage, unlink it, or delete it. So in this case, I would have sent the invoice and linked it to the job card. So I'm going to let it mark that task as complete, and I'm going to let it do all of these things: send a proposal, send the client an email, and that is a template email that I've set up and attached to this particular pipeline in that stage, so that it's going to email them and say, hey, here's the outline. We're getting started on your 1040 tax prep. Here's the things that are going to be happening, and just kind of gives them an overview of the process. I also send them a chat message here in the portal. That's going to draw them into the portal instead of leaving them in their email, right? I want to send them that first email because it's a new tax season. They probably haven't logged into the portal in a while. And so I send them that email just to give them that update. And then this is going to kind of draw them into the portal by sending them a chat message. They'll get an email notification saying there's a new chat message and everything. That's kind of default within Taxdome. And then it updates their client-facing status saying, hey, we're waiting on your engagement letter and invoice. If you're wondering what's going on with your tax prep, that's the stage that it's in right now. We're waiting for you to sign the engagement letter and pay the invoice. So once I move it, it does that. It sends those things to them. You can see that the chat message that it automatically sent has now been has been linked to this job card. So if I click on that, it will take me to that chat message, and it sent them this chat message. Hey, we need you to sign the contract. Here's your action steps. Can't find it. So again, it's a template chat message that I have set up to send to them once it goes into that stage. You can also see here, this job will automatically move to the next stage when these things are completed. The proposal is signed. So once they sign the proposal, and normally, like I said, I would have created the invoice, and the invoice would be linked to this job as well. And in that case, they would need to do both of those things. They would need to sign the engagement letter and pay the invoice. If they do one but not the other, this job will not automatically move. You can also turn off the auto move feature, but basically I have it on in several of these stages. So it's sitting here. When that client pays the invoice and signs the engagement letter, this job will move by itself into the next stage. I will not have to click and move it. It will move by itself into the next stage once those two things are done, because I have the auto move turned on, and I'm going to show you how you do that in a little bit. So they do that. It moves automatically to the next stage, and then these automations trigger automatically. I do not have to touch it. I don't have to do anything for that, and that's amazing. That saves you a ton of admin time. It's going to create the organizer. That's your normal kind of client organizer. Do you have W-2 income? Do you have self-employment income? Do you have charitable contribution deductions? It's going to send them a message saying, hey, we just sent you an organizer. We need you to do that. It's going to update the client-facing status again. We're waiting for your organizer. And then this is where I remind them of an IP pin if they have one. So I've tagged clients as having IP pins. And if they have that tag, it will send them this chat message. If they don't have that tag, it will not send them the chat message. So that's pretty cool, where you can tag people and have it do specific things only if that applies to them. Now, again, the engagement letter would normally have been signed. This would normally move by itself into that stage. Once they complete the organizer, it's going to automatically move into process client documents. It's going to create a task there for one of my employees who does the client document processing to go in and organize and label the documents. It's going to attach a wiki page which has my labeling system in it, so that my employee can reference the labeling system so they know exactly how to label it. It's going to send the client a message saying, hey, we got your information. How many times has a client uploaded documents and then emailed you and say, did you get my documents? So cut out all of those by just the system will automatically send them a chat message saying, we got your tax organizer and your documents. We're going to take it from here. You don't need to do anything else. And then it's going to hide the client-facing status. My employee will come in, process the documents, label them. If they can't read one, they're going to send a message to the client, say, we can't read that. We need you to re-upload a new one. And then they will drag and drop it into assign a tax return preparer. At this stage, that's when I come in here. I look at the particular clients, and I will choose who I want to assign it to. So I have, multiple preparers who do the initial prep of tax returns, and I will assign it to one of them, and then I will drag and drop it into ready to begin return. When that happens, it's going to create a task for that particular employee to do the tax prep. It's going to update the client-facing status saying, hey, you're in this stage of tax prep. We're working on your return, and we'll let you know if we need anything. And then it's going to, you can update access to clients or not. So that's something that's in there right now. Now, as my employee prepares the tax return, they might have some follow-up questions. If they have follow-up questions, they're going to send a chat message in Taxdome with tasks attached to that chat message. We need your W-2 from XYZ company if you still work there. Last year, you had a brokerage account from Schwab. Do you still have that? You said in the tax organizer that you had home mortgage interest, but you didn't give us a mortgage interest statement. Please upload that. So as they're doing the initial prep, now some people do that during the process client document stage of their workflow. This is just, again, I'm not saying you have to do it this way, but this is my workflow, and to help you kind of think through just mapping out what your workflow is and then creating these stages that your jobs are going to sit in. That's really all you have to do at the end of the day. So if there are no question follow-ups, if they have everything and they've prepped a return, they're going to skip waiting on responses and continue working on. They're just going to drop it into ready for review. But if they have those follow-up questions, they're going to send the chat with the tasks, and they're going to link that to the job card and drop it in waiting on responses. Now, when the client goes in, they check those tasks off as they respond to them. As soon as all of the tasks are checked off in that chat message, it will auto move to continue working on. So again, my employees, or I, if I'm doing this, we don't have to constantly be checking if they've uploaded everything they need to. Now, some clients don't check the boxes off, and you kind of do have to keep an eye on it a little bit. But they check those boxes off, it auto moves to continue working on. We see it in that stage, we start working on it. It's going to, again, create a task and update the client-facing status. And then you could bounce back and forth between these, right? So if they still miss something, or if my preparer missed something and they need to send another follow-up question, they would send another task and they would drop it back into waiting on responses. So these two, it might cycle through these two a couple of times. That usually doesn't happen. It's usually in this stage, it's out, and then it's moving to review. But if you miss something or you got to send it back, it can go through this stage more than once. And it can move backwards to go back to waiting on responses. Once it's in ready to review, I step in, I review the tax return, I go through everything. I've got videos on kind of my process for how I prepare returns, also on how I review returns. You can check those out on the YouTube channel. But basically, yeah, it goes into ready to review. It's going to do these automations. It's going to tag that account as in review. It's going to create a task for me to review the return. It's going to update the status that the client sees that says, hey, your tax return is in the review stage now. It's going to create a task for me and send a message. So it sends them a chat message saying, hey, you're in the review stage, updates their client-facing status. And then this task, create Loom and Gamma. Oh, that's only if they have these tags. So if their account is tagged as essential or premium, it's going to create this task for me to remind me that I need to do a Loom video and a Gamma report for that client. But if they're on our basic package, it will not create that task for me. Now, if I have questions, follow-up questions for the client, then I'm going to send those as a chat message, same way with tasks attached to it, and I'm going to drop it into reviewer waiting on responses. And again, if they check those tasks off as they answer them, it's going to automatically move into reviewer continue working on. Then I have, once I'm done with it, I've reviewed it. Normally, once I'm done reviewing it, I just go ahead, I print the tax return to Taxdome, but if I'm batching my work or something like that, I could drop it into ready to deliver tax return. It's just going to create some tasks that say, hey, send the e-file authorization, send the tax return to them, and update, remove the in review stage. I usually don't use this stage, but like for people who maybe need a Gamma report and a Loom video, if I'm not going to go ahead and do that right away, I might drop them into here and then kind of do multiple clients at one time. Or as I finish the return, I might just go ahead and do that and then send it to them and drop it in waiting for signature. So usually after I review it, if it's done, I either, it goes from review to waiting for signature typically and skips all of these. Or I'm waiting for responses because I got follow-up questions. Then it's continue working on. Then it's waiting for signature. But I do have this spot where I can drop it in here, ready to deliver. And if I had an admin person actually who would do the printing of the document and setting up the signatures for me, then I could drop it into here, and then the admin person would just come in and set up the signatures and send that to the client and everything. So that's another option if you're not going to be the one doing that yourself. Hold. So this hold, there's no automations here. There's no auto move. It's just maybe I'm waiting for the K. Well, if I'm waiting from a K1, I'm going to put that in waiting on responses if they've got to get me the K1. If it's a K1 that I'm doing if I do the business return and it's waiting on a K1 from me, then I'm going to drop it into the hold category because I'm not really waiting on information from them, but I do need to do it. I need to do the return myself before I can keep working on their personal return. So I'll drop that into hold. There's various other reasons why I do hold. This is kind of just a catch for anything that kind of fits outside of these normal stages. And a lot of times I find that's why they can't get over the hump here of figuring out how this pipeline works, is because there might be something that's outside of it. Now, it's pretty rare. Well, I won't say it's rare. There's not many things in the hold category. It happens and people go into there, but it's not like 50%. If half of your clients are going into hold, then you need to figure out what's going on there and probably create a dedicated stage for that. But this is the stuff that kind of every now and then it falls outside the norm. You just need a place for it to sit so that the rest of your pipeline is still accurate and everything's working smoothly. So just create a hold category. You can put it anywhere in here that you want. This is where mine sits. Waiting for signature, exactly what it says. It's tagged. It sends them a message saying we need you to sign the tax return. That message also includes a link for them to schedule an appointment to go through the tax return with me. But basically, it's sitting there waiting for signature, and they can either go ahead and sign the return or they can schedule an appointment with me to go through it. Once the 8879 is signed, again, that PDF is attached to the job. So as soon as it's signed by both spouses, if there needs to be two signatures, that job will automatically move to ready to e-file. It'll create a task, it'll update the client-facing status, and it'll send them a chat message saying, thanks for signing the return. We're going to file your return as soon as possible. Once I e-file the return, I stick it into waiting on e-file. Once I get my e-file confirmations, I will stick it in e-file accepted, and that is going to send them a chat message saying, hey, we finished your return. It's been filed. It has been accepted, and you are done. I do also ask them to fill out a client satisfaction survey. So I want their feedback on, their experience in working with us. And so that we'll send a chat message with that link to it as well. And then this isn't automated. I wish I could have like a time delay, but at the moment, that's some feedback for Taxdome. But at the moment, there's no time delay. So I have to manually move it. And you can select multiple jobs at once and move them all at one time, or you can click and drag them over, whatever works. But basically, once they've been in e-file accepted, so they got basically, hey, your return was filed, the file was accepted, you're done. Please, fill out a client satisfaction survey. Once they've been in that stage for at least a day, usually I wait 2 or 3 days, I'll move them into the completed return section. And what that does is it sends them one more chat message that just says, hey, all of your documents are in the portal. If you need them, they're there. We recommend that you download those documents. But it also, in that chat message, asks them for a Google review. So I use Google Maps and my Google business listing. That's where I collect all of my reviews for the public to be able to see. And so I ask for that. I say, hey, would you please give us a 5-star review on Google? Here's the link. And it also says, if you can't give us a 5-star review, please reach out to us so that we can remedy the situation and figure out what the issue was. Now, I also have already asked them for feedback through my client satisfaction survey. So I've already given them a spot to tell me if there were any problems. And now I'm asking them for a 5-star review. And if they can't give a 5-star review, to please tell me what the problems were. And so I've only ever gotten 5-star reviews. I have 75 of them on Google right now. And so that has been the simple process: is ask for a review, ask specifically for a 5-star review, give them a way to give you feedback before you ask for the review, and then also tell them that if they can't give you a 5-star review, you're open to remedy the situation. Please just let us know what we can do, and we'll handle it. And I think that'll help avoid any lower ratings. And so you'll only get 5-star reviews. And by asking, people will actually give you reviews. Of course, not everyone. It's a very low percentage of people who actually do that. But because I asked, I have 75 reviews in 6 years on Google, because I've been asking for 6 years for reviews. So that is the pipeline. Those are my stages. Every single job goes through those stages. Now I'm going to go through kind of the other view where you can edit the pipeline, and I'll show you what that looks like very quickly. But basically, like I said, this is just your jobs are already moving through a pretty standard workflow. This is just you mapping it out. And in order to do this, I would not start in Taxdome. What I would do is I would start with a blank piece of computer paper. I would close your eyes, and I would just think through the client experience. What stages of the client experience? What stages of work? Now, all of this isn't client experience either, right? Some of this is I'm moving things around, and the client doesn't necessarily know that. But what stages does this work have to go through from start to finish? And just just write the stages out on a sheet of paper. Kind of draw it as just a workflow, and then start to build those stages in your pipeline here in Taxdome. So the way that you do that is you go into the templates, and you go into the pipeline templates, and you open up that particular pipeline. So I'm in my templates, I'm in the pipelines, I opened up that particular pipeline, and this is where all of the stages are. You have to scroll down to be able to scroll over, which is a little bit annoying because it's hard to kind of see, but I got this little click wheel on my mouse that'll actually let me do this as well, which helps. But you've got the stages, you've got the settings for that pipeline, and this is where the job card, you can hide or show in kind of that big view where you see all the job cards. You can hide and show what shows up by default. You can default recurring setting. I don't really do that. You can say who can see this pipeline. You can sort the jobs by account name or the time in the stage or start date if you use that particular feature. And then you choose what the default job template is anytime you add a job to that stage. You can also have custom job statuses that are available as well. And then again, here I can drag and drop. So if you add a new stage, you can say, hey, new stage, this is what that stage is. And then I'm like, oh, actually that comes after waiting on contract, so let me move it after that. Or, oh, that comes before that stage, let me move it. So you can just move stuff around very easily. You can add, you can delete stages. But this is essentially just where you're going to create the stages that your work is going to go through. And this is where you can quickly and just easily say, okay, once everything in this stage is done, anything attached to that job card, if it's a message with tasks, if it's waiting for signature, if it's waiting on an organizer, if it's waiting for a signature on an engagement letter, if it's waiting for an invoice that has been linked to the job, again, those things have to be linked to the job card for this to work. But whatever is linked to the job card that needs to be done, once it's done, if you click this auto move and turn it on, once everything's done that's attached to that job card, it's going to automatically move to the next stage. And if there's any automations, they're going to automatically run. And then it's going to automatically move from that to the next one. So every time you kind of choose this auto move on. Now, when I first started out, I did not have auto move on any of them. I kind of wanted to make sure that all the automations were right. And so I was hesitant to do that. But then as I got comfortable with, okay, at this stage, it can definitely auto move. I don't need to make sure that anything happened there. It's fine for this just to fire and go without me looking at it. And so that's what happened. And then let's see. So you got the auto move on, and you can still see I don't have auto move on in every stage. Like when it's in ready to begin, you could turn auto move on there, and basically the only thing in here is the task, prep the return. So if my employee were to mark that task as complete, it would auto move to waiting on client responses. But that might not be where it needs to go. It might need to go into ready for review. So I have the auto move off on that one. And when the employee is done prepping the return, they just manually click and drag it into whatever the correct next stage is. And so that's essentially what's in here. The automations, essentially what you can do is you can edit the automations, or if there's a stage that doesn't have automations, what you do is you click add. So, you can add the automations. You can apply folder templates, update account tags, send invoices, create organizers, send a request, create a task. So there's all these automations that you can just have it automatically do as soon as a job enters that stage. And that is going to save you just a ton of time. Now, there is a way to upload a template pipeline into kind of the community area where there's a storefront somewhere. And I'm going to look into that, and I'm going to upload my pipeline as a template into the community store once I figure out how to do that. I haven't looked into that before, but I know you can do that. And so if you like this pipeline, you can go ahead, go in there and purchase it, and you can use it. Once you purchase it, you have it, you can tweak it, you can delete things, you can add new stages, you can move stages around, but at least it will give you some sort of starting point if you don't want to build from scratch. I did build mine from scratch. I like I said, I was already using Asana, so I kind of already had my stages, and then I thought through the automations as I went through it, and I've added automations, I've removed automations, just as I've continued to constantly improve the process and think through kind of new things or change my process. I mean, next year I plan on actually meeting with all of my clients, so I'm going to have to update my stages a little bit because I want to meet on a Zoom call or a phone call with every one of my clients during tax season before I prep the return. I'm not going to do all those appointments. Like I said, whoever's preparing the return will do that, and there's 4 of us preparing returns. So we're going to split that up. But basically, I'm going to have to kind of tweak my pipeline here a little bit because there'll be a new stage that people will be in as we're meeting with them or waiting to meet with them to go through their documents and answer any questions that we might have for them. So all of that, you're constantly improving, you're constantly changing things, but again, I'm going to find out, and then once I figure out how to get this into the store and set a low price on it, then I'll put the link to it in the notes below the YouTube video, and so you'll be able to just click that link and purchase this pipeline if that is one that you want to use for your business. But there you go. That's exactly what mine looks like. If there's any questions or if I didn't cover something that you think would be helpful, just leave a comment or shoot me a message or whatever, and I can do another video on anything that might be missing from this. But hopefully that helps, because this is just a huge thing that I see. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, over and over again, people are like, I'm stuck on this pipeline. I don't know really how to do the automations or the workflow. What do I do? And some of the things you have to create templates for ahead of time. So you have to have a job template before you can create a job to go into a pipeline. You have to have a task template before you can automatically assign a task in a particular stage of the pipeline. You have to have an email template or a chat message template, of course, before you can set an automation for it to send that chat message. So there's some building blocks there. But again, you can build the pipeline stages first and then just think through kind of what's going to happen at each one and say, okay, well, I need a chat message to go out here, so let me go create that template for the chat message and then come back and add it. Or, okay, I need an email to go out here, so let me go create that email template and then come back and edit my pipeline and add that as an automation. And so all of that, just figure out your stages first, build out your pipeline, and then you can kind of think through the customer experience. You can create a test client with your personal email address. I did this too. Created a test client with my personal email address, and as I drag and dropped it and moved it through the stages, I went to my email and I saw what it was kicking to me, and I saw the notifications on my phone because I had logged in as a client on the app. And so it was like I was experiencing what the clients were going to experience, and that's how I kind of tested the customer experience in doing this. And so I would recommend kind of doing that too, just using a personal email address to create yourself as a client so that you can kind of see what's happening on the other end as you do this. So I hope that was helpful, and I appreciate you watching the video.